In a quiet Spanish town, a mother and daughter's bond is shattered by betrayal, pride, and greed. Marjorie, a widow who once lost everything, her home, her dignity, and even the love of her only daughter, suddenly finds herself face to face with Lauren, the same daughter who had cast her aside years earlier to follow a man who promised luxury and gave her only ruin. When Lauren returns, bankrupt and broken, she expects sympathy. Instead, she meets a mother who seems fragile and poor, but who hides a secret powerful enough to rewrite both their lives. Behind Marjorie's calm eyes lies a plan quiet, calculated, and painful. Rather than rescuing Lauren immediately, she allows her daughter to fall, to struggle, to taste despair, because only by touching the bottom will Lauren truly understand the value of family, respect, and love. What unfolds next is not revenge, is transformation. Through suffering comes wisdom. Through loss, redemption. By the time Lauren discovers that her poor mother is in fact a wealthy woman who could have saved her all along, it's too late for pride, but just in time for healing. Together, they rebuild not just a home, but an unbreakable bond between two women who finally learn that real wealth has nothing to do with money and everything to do with forgiveness. I was sitting in the doctor's waiting room when my phone rang. It was Lauren, my only daughter. Her voice sounded strange, almost cold, when she said, "Mom, we're traveling to Europe tomorrow. Your beach house and your car. I already sold them. We needed the money. Bye." And she hung up. Just like that. Nothing more. 40-5 years. Raising her, sacrificing myself for her, and she throws me away as if I were garbage. But I took a deep breath and smiled because there was something my dear daughter didn't know. My name is Marjorie. I'm 71 years old, and until that moment, I thought I knew my daughter. I had just become a widow 6 months earlier. Michael, my husband, died of a heart attack while we were having breakfast together, as we had done every morning for 45 years. That morning, he had served me coffee with milk and toast. As always, he had kissed my forehead and said, "Good morning, my love." Those were his last words. Since then, Lauren had been more present in my life, or so I thought. She came to visit me 3 times a week. She helped me with the funeral paperwork, accompanied me to the market. She even suggested that I go to the doctor for a general checkup. "Mom, you need to take better care of yourself now that you're alone," she told me, with that smile that I thought was made of love, but now I understand was of convenience. The beach house had been our refuge for years. Michael and I bought it when Lauren was 15, with a lot of effort and sacrifice. Every summer we went there. We built memories, celebrated birthdays and Christmases. Lauren would bring her boyfriends, then later Richard, her husband. I cooked for everyone, cleaned, washed clothes. It was our family tradition. I never thought she would see it only as money and the car, that old Volkswagen that Michael cared for as if it were his son. He washed it every Sunday, changed the oil religiously, always parked it in the same corner under the shade of the tree. Lauren knew what that car meant to me. It was the last thing I had left of him. His scent was still soaked into the seats when she hung up the phone. I stayed sitting there on that uncomfortable green plastic chair, surrounded by other sick people, and for the first time in months, I didn't cry. Something strange happened inside me, a calm that I hadn't felt since Michael's death, because at that moment, I remembered something that I had completely forgotten. 3 days before he died, Michael had handed me a manila envelope. "Marjorie, keep this in your dresser drawer. If something happens to me, open it after some time, but only when you feel ready." I had put it away without thinking much about it. After the funeral, with so much pain and so many procedures, I simply forgot. But there it was, waiting for me at home. The nurse called my name to enter the doctor's office. The doctor examined me. He told me that I was fine for my age, that I only needed to rest more and eat better. I nodded and smiled, but my mind was somewhere else. I was thinking about that envelope, about the coldness in Lauren's voice, about how Richard was probably behind all of this. He had never liked me. He always saw me as a nuisance. I left the office and walked slowly toward the bus stop. I no longer had a car, according to Lauren. But while I waited, I couldn't help but smile. There was something poetic about all this. My daughter believed she had left me with nothing, but what she didn't know was that Michael, my dear Michael, had always been a foresighted man. The bus arrived and I sat by the window. I watched the city go by, the houses, the shops, the people running here and there, each one with their own tragedies, their own secrets. I had mine too, and I was about to discover them when I got home. I went straight up to my room. I opened the dresser drawer, and there was the manila envelope exactly where I had left it. My hands trembled a little when I took it. I could feel that there were several documents inside. Michael had written my name in his careful handwriting on the front. I sat on the bed we had shared for so many years and took a deep breath. Outside, it was beginning to get dark, and the house filled with those familiar shadows that no longer scared me. I opened the envelope slowly, as if I were unwrapping a birthday present. What I found inside would change everything. What I found in that envelope left me breathless. There were legal documents, deeds, bank certificates, and a handwritten letter from Michael. My eyes filled with tears as I read his familiar handwriting. My dear Marjorie, if you're reading this, it means that I'm no longer with you. Forgive me for not telling you everything while I lived, but I wanted to protect you from worries. During these years, I invested our savings in properties and businesses. We don't just have the beach house. We have 6 other properties, including the building where Lauren and Richard live. We also have shares in 3 companies worth more than you can imagine. You are rich, my love. You have always been rich, but now you are on paper too. My hands trembled as I went through the documents. There were deeds of houses in different neighborhoods of the city, an apartment downtown, a small hotel on the coast, and indeed the 20-story building where my daughter lived. Michael had been the silent owner for the last 10 years. But he had put everything under the name of a company that I didn't know existed, and according to the papers, I was the only heir to that company. There were also bank statements of accounts I never knew existed, numbers that looked unreal. Michael had been a bus driver for 40 years, but apparently he had also been a very intelligent investor. Every penny we saved, every sacrifice we made, he had quietly multiplied, and I never knew anything in the letter. Michael explained that he had kept everything secret because he didn't want me to worry about money, nor for Lauren to know our real financial situation. You know our daughter, Marjorie, if she ever learned we had so much money, her attitude would change. I want her to love us for who we are, not for what we have. What irony. Our daughter had left us thinking we had nothing when in reality we had everything. That night I couldn't sleep. I walked through the house, touching the old furniture, the decorations Lauren had always criticized for being outdated. I looked at the family photos on the wall, especially that one where she was 5 years old. Sitting on Michael's lap, laughing, where had that sweet little girl gone? When had she become so cold, so calculating? The next day, very early, the phone rang. It was Lauren again. Her voice sounded different, softer, but I had already learned to distrust those changes in tone. Mom, how are you? I wanted to tell you that we already transferred the money from the house and the car. We deposited your share into your account. It's not much, but it will help you live for a few months while you look for something smaller. My share? I asked, keeping my voice calm. Yes, Mom. Obviously we weren't going to leave you with nothing. We gave you 30%. It's fair, right? We need the money for the investment in Europe. Richard has an incredible business opportunity there. 30% of my own things. How generous, I understand. Dear. And when are you leaving? This afternoon. We already have the suitcases ready. We'll be away for at least 6 months, maybe longer if the business goes well. But don't worry, Mom. When we come back, we'll help you find a small apartment, something suited to your needs. Suited to my needs. As if she knew what my needs were. All right, Lauren. Have a good trip. Oh, Mom, I knew you'd understand. You've always been so reasonable. We love you so much. And she hung up. I stayed there with the phone in my hand, and for the first time in months, I laughed. I laughed like I hadn't since Michael died. The situation was so absurd, it was almost funny. My daughter had stolen from me, kicked me out of my own house, talked to me with unbearable condescension, and all to fund a European adventure. That would probably be a disaster. But what hurt the most wasn't the money. It was how icily she had discarded me. 45 years of life devoted to her, of sacrifice, of unconditional love, and she erased me from her life with a 2-minute phone call. That was what truly hurt. I checked my bank account online. Indeed, they had deposited an amount that probably seemed generous to them, but to me it was an insult. They had sold the beach house for much less than it was worth, surely because they needed the money quickly, and they had practically given away Michael's car. That afternoon, from my window I saw Lauren and Richard loading suitcases into a taxi. He carried 2 huge suitcases. She had a travel bag that looked very expensive. I watched them laugh, kiss, make plans. They looked like 2 teenagers excited about an adventure. They never looked up at my window. They never said goodbye. When the taxi left, I sat in the kitchen with a cup of tea and Michael's documents spread out on the table. I had to make decisions. I could call a lawyer, reclaim my properties, get back everything they had taken from me. But something told me there was a better way to handle this, a more educational one. I called George, the lawyer who had handled Michael's affairs. He had been present at the funeral, had offered me his condolences, had told me that if I ever needed anything, I should not hesitate to call him. Well, now, I needed him. Double quotes. Mrs. Marjorie, what a pleasure to hear from you. How are you doing? Fine, George. I need to see you urgently. I found some documents of Michael's that I don't quite understand. Of course, he said. You can come to my office tomorrow morning. I'll be there. That night, for the first time in months, I slept deeply. I dreamed of Michael. He was sitting in his favorite chair reading the newspaper as he did every morning. And when he saw me, he smiled and said, "It was about time, my love. It was about time you defended yourself." I woke up with a strange feeling. It wasn't exactly happiness, but neither was it the sadness I had felt for so many months. It was something like determination. For the first time since Michael's death, I had a clear purpose. I was going to recover what was mine, but not in the way Lauren expected. The next morning, I got ready more carefully than usual. I put on my wine-colored dress, the one Michael always said made me look elegant. I combed my hair, put on a bit of makeup, and when I looked at myself in the mirror, I saw a woman I hadn't seen in a long time. I saw a strong woman. George's office was downtown. It was an old but elegant building with marble floors and large windows. George greeted me with a warm smile, but when I showed him the documents, his expression completely changed. "Mrs. Marjorie, this is much more than I imagined." Michael was a very intelligent man. "Look, according to these papers, you are the owner of—" "I know, George. I've already reviewed them. What I need to know is what I can do legally." George explained to me that everything was in order, that the documents were legitimate, that I was the rightful owner of all those properties. He also confirmed something I already suspected. The sale of the beach house had been illegal because Lauren had no right to sell it. "We can recover the house immediately, Mrs. Marjorie, and we can also proceed legally against your daughter for fraud." "No, George, I don't want to proceed legally. I want to do this another way. I want everything to remain secret for now. Can you help me?" George looked at me with curiosity but nodded. "Of course. You are my client. What do you need?" "I need you to discreetly recover the beach house, to do whatever is necessary to annul that fraudulent sale, and I need you to help me take real control of all my properties, especially the building where my daughter lives." "I understand. It will be a process that will take a few weeks, but it's completely feasible." "Perfect. And George, I need no one to know that I'm behind all this, at least for now." When I left George's office, I felt as if I had woken up from a very long dream. I walked through the downtown streets, watching the people, the buildings, life continuing its normal course. But for me, everything had changed. I had a plan. The following weeks were the strangest of my life. Officially, I was a poor widow who had been abandoned by her daughter, but secretly, I was a wealthy woman quietly orchestrating the recovery of her estate. George worked efficiently, and every few days he called me to give me updates on the progress of the legal procedures. I decided to stay in my house. Meanwhile, it was mine after all. Although Lauren probably expected me to move into a rented room somewhere every morning. I woke up, had breakfast at the same table where Michael and I had shared so many years, and then went out for a walk around the neighborhood. The neighbors greeted me with that mix of pity and curiosity that people reserve for recent widows. Nora, my lifelong neighbor, approached me one afternoon while she was watering the plants in front. "Marjorie, dear, is it true that Lauren went to Europe and left you alone?" "Yes, Nora. She went with Richard. They have business plans there." "And how are you going to live, dear? We all know Michael didn't leave much money." "If only you knew," I thought. "Don't worry, Nora. I'll be fine. Do you need anything? I can bring you food, help you with shopping." "You're very kind, but I'm fine, really." Nora looked at me with that expression I knew well. It was the same look I had received after the funeral. Compassion mixed with a bit of relief that it wasn't her tragedy. "Well, you know where to find me if you need anything." These conversations repeated constantly. The butcher, the baker, the lady from the corner store, all of them spoke to me with that gentle tone people use with the unfortunate, and I nodded, smiled, thanked them for their concern. But inside, a part of me enjoyed this performance. It was like living a double life. George called me on a Wednesday morning, double quotes, "Mrs. Marjorie, I have good news. I managed to annul the sale of the beach house. The buyers didn't know the sale was fraudulent, so they got their money back without problems. The house is yours again." "Excellent, George. And the building where Lauren lives, that one is more complicated. Technically, you've always been the owner through the company, but we need to make some administrative changes so you have direct control. It should take another 2 weeks." "Perfect. Keep me informed." After hanging up, I sat in the kitchen with my coffee and thought about Lauren. She had been in Europe for 3 weeks and I hadn't heard from her. Not a call. Not a message. Not even a postcard to her. I had stopped existing the moment she got the money she wanted, but I knew that was going to change soon. I decided to visit the beach house. I took the bus to the coast, the same route Michael and I had taken hundreds of times. The house was exactly as I remembered, small, painted cream color with a terrace overlooking the sea. The new owners had put some potted plants, but apart from that, everything was the same. I sat on the sidewalk across the street and looked at it for an hour. I remembered the summer afternoons when Lauren was little, running on the beach, building sand, Michael grilling fish on the barbecue while I prepared salads in the kitchen, Lauren bringing friends, then boyfriends, then Richard. All those happy moments that she had reduced to a simple commercial transaction, An older man came out of the house and saw me sitting there. He approached me with curiosity. "Are you all right, ma'am?" "Yes, thank you. I'm just remembering, I knew the former owners." "Yes, we knew them very well. What a shame about what happened." "They told us the old lady was very sick and needed to sell quickly. We thought it was a bargain, but now it turns out the sale wasn't legal. We had to return the house." "Did you know them personally?" "No, we did everything through intermediaries. But they told us the daughter was handling everything because the mother couldn't." What a sad situation. If you only knew how sad it really was, I thought. Well, I'm glad you didn't lose your money. Yes. Luckily, everything was resolved fine. Although, now we have to find another house. We liked this one a lot. I left there with a heavy heart. It wasn't just the money that hurt me. It was the ease with which Lauren had lied about me. She had invented a story about my illness. She had used my supposed vulnerability to justify her actions to her. I wasn't a person with feelings, but an obstacle that had to be removed. That night, I called George again. "George, I need you to help me with something else. I want to recover Michael's car too. That will be more difficult." "Mrs. Marjorie, the car was indeed under your name, but your daughter had a power of attorney that allowed her to sell it? How is that possible?" "Apparently you signed that power a few months after your husband's death. Don't you remember?" There it was. The moment when Lauren had started planning all this, I vaguely remembered signing some papers she had brought me, telling me they were to make the funeral and inheritance paperwork easier. I was so confused by grief that I signed without reading. How naive I had been. "I understand. George, is there any way to recover it?" "We can try, but it will be more complicated. We would need to prove that you signed that power under deceit or coercion." "Let's do it. I want to recover everything they took from me." During the following weeks, I developed a strange routine. In the mornings, I was the poor widow everyone knew. I went out to buy what was necessary, talked to the neighbors, kept up appearances, but in the afternoons I became a businesswoman. I studied Michael's documents, talked with George, planned my next move. I learned things about finance that I never thought I would need to know. I discovered that Michael had been much smarter than I had thought. Each one of his investments had been carefully calculated. The building where Lauren lived, for example, was not only profitable because of the rent income, but it was in an area that was rapidly increasing in value. I also discovered that Richard, Lauren's husband, had debts, many debts. He had taken out loans using as collateral the apartment where they lived. Without knowing that he wasn't the real owner, when the banks realized this, he was going to have serious problems. George called me on a Friday with important news. "Mrs. Marjorie, we've finished all the procedures. You now have total control of all your properties." I also recovered Michael's car. The buyer turned out to be an acquaintance of mine, and when I explained the situation, he agreed to return it in exchange for a small compensation. "Excellent work, George. Now I need you to help me with one more thing. I want you to send a letter to my daughter." "What kind of letter?" "An eviction letter." There was silence on the other end of the line. "Mrs. Marjorie, are you sure you want to do this?" "Completely sure. She decided that I wasn't important in her life. Now she's going to find out how important I am." "I understand. Do you want me to send it to Europe?" "I don't want her to receive it when she comes back. I have a feeling it's going to be very soon." I wasn't wrong that very afternoon. Nora came running to my house with fresh neighborhood news. "Marjorie, did you know that Richard is in trouble with the bank? My brother-in-law, who works there, told me they're investigating some loans he requested using as collateral the apartment where they live, but it turns out the apartment isn't his." "Really?" "Yes. And it seems Lauren didn't know anything about it. They're saying she'll have to come back from Europe to fix this mess." "What a complicated situation." "Yes. And the worst part is, apparently Richard lied to her about the business in Europe. There was no business. He just wanted to escape from the debts he had here." Perfect. Everything was going exactly as I expected. Lauren had trusted Richard, had sacrificed her relationship with me for him, and now she was discovering that he wasn't the man she believed he was. That night, I sat on the terrace with a cup of tea and looked at the stars. Michael used to say that stars were the souls of people who had lived a full life, watching over their families from heaven. If that were true, then he was up there, watching how his plan was unfolding perfectly. "Thank you, my love," I said to the sky. "Thank you for taking care of me, even after your death." The next day, George called me early. "Mrs. Marjorie, there's news. Your daughter has just arrived in the country. She's at the airport alone." "Yes. Apparently Richard stayed in Europe. There are rumors they had a very big argument." "I understand. Did you already send the letter?" "I'm sending it today. She should receive it tomorrow." I hung up the phone and stayed there in the kitchen, feeling a mixture of nervousness and anticipation after so many weeks of silent planning. The time had finally come for the first real move. Lauren was about to discover that her mother was not the helpless victim she believed her to be. Lauren arrived at her apartment on Tuesday night. I knew it because Nora, who seemed to have informants everywhere in the neighborhood, came to tell me the next day. Double quotes. Marjorie, your daughter came back last night. I saw her going up with a suitcase, but she looked terrible, pale with dark circles under her eyes, as if she had cried the entire flight. Alone, completely alone, and something strange. Marjorie, when the doorman asked for her keys, she didn't have them. She had to ask the concierge to open the door with the emergency copy. Interesting. Richard had the keys, which meant he had probably decided not to return. Or maybe Lauren had discovered something about him and had fled. In any case, my daughter was back, and very soon she would receive my little welcome gift. George called me that same afternoon. Double quotes, Mrs. Marjorie. The letter was delivered an hour ago. The doorman confirmed that your daughter received it personally. Perfect. How much time did we give her? 30 days to vacate the apartment as established by the legal regulations. But, Mrs. Marjorie, are you sure you want to do this? She's your daughter, after all. George, my daughter kicked me out of my own house with a 2-minute phone call. She sold my things without asking me. She treated me as if I were garbage. Now she's going to learn that actions have consequences. I understand. I just wanted to make sure you had considered all the implications. I've considered them, George. All of them. That night, I couldn't sleep. I stayed awake imagining Lauren's face when she read the letter. The initial confusion, then disbelief, then panic. She would probably think it was a mistake, that someone was trying to scam her, but when she called to verify, she would find out that everything was completely legal the next day. As if she had been waiting for my call, the phone rang at 8 in the morning. It was Lauren, and her voice sounded desperate. Mom, I need to talk to you urgently. Good morning, dear. How was Europe? Mom, I don't have time for that right now. I received a very strange letter yesterday. It says, I have to vacate my apartment in 30 days. It must be a mistake, right? Do you know anything about this? An eviction letter. How strange. From whom? From a company I've never heard of. It's called Wait, let me look for the letter investments. Michael S.A.? Do you know this company? Michael had used his own name for the company. How poetic. No, dear, I've never heard that name. Are you sure the letter is legitimate? That's what I want to find out. Mom, I need you to help me. I don't know what to do. Richard left me in Europe. He went with another woman, and now I come back to this. I don't understand what's happening. There was the confirmation. Richard had abandoned her probably when the money ran out, or when he realized the legal problems at home were more serious than he thought. Poor Lauren. She had sacrificed her family. For a man who wasn't worth anything, I'm so sorry, dear. Where are you now? I'm at the apartment, but I don't know for how long. Mom, can I come see you? I need to talk to someone. I have no one else. The irony was perfect. Now that she had been left without the man for whom she had abandoned me, she remembered she had a mother, of course. Dear, come whenever you want. I'm going right now. I hung up the phone and looked at myself in the mirror. I had to look perfect for this performance. I put on my most conservative gray dress, tied my hair into a simple bun, and practiced my expression of a worried but resigned mother. When Lauren arrived, she would see exactly what she expected to see. A poor, vulnerable widow who had been abandoned by her own daughter. Lauren arrived an hour later. When I opened the door, I was surprised at how bad she looked. She had lost weight, had deep dark circles, and her expensive clothes looked wrinkled and unkempt. Her eyes were red from crying, Mom, she said. And for a moment I thought she was going to hug me, but she stopped, as if suddenly remembering how things had ended between us. Come in, dear. Do you want some coffee? Yes, please. We sat in the kitchen, at the same table where I had read Michael's documents weeks earlier. Lauren looked small in that chair, lost, like when she was a little girl, and used to come tell me about her school problems. Mom, I'm so sorry about how I left. I know I didn't treat you right. It's over, dear. No, it's not over. I treated you badly. I said horrible things to you. And now her voice broke. Now I have no one. What happened with Richard? He left with a hotel waitress in Paris, a 25-year-old girl. It turns out there was never any business in Europe. It was all a lie. He only wanted to escape from the debts he had here, and he used the money from the sale of your house to finance his adventure. All the debts. Yes, Mom, many debts. It seems he had been taking out loans for years, using the apartment where we lived as collateral. But now I find out that he wasn't the owner of the apartment. How is that possible? Here was my opportunity. I don't know, dear. Property matters are very complicated. The problem is that now the banks are coming after me for his debts. They say that since we were married, I'm also responsible. And on top of that, this eviction letter. Mom, I don't know what to do. I have no money, no job, no place to live. She began to cry, real tears of genuine desperation. And for a moment, my mother's heart softened. I wanted to hug her, to comfort her, to tell her that everything was going to be fine. But then I remembered the coldness in her voice when she had called me from the doctor's office. The ease with which she had discarded me. The way she had spoken to me as if I were a burden. "Have you spoken to any lawyer about the letter?" "I don't have money for a lawyer, Mom. We spent all the money in Europe. Richard took what little was left when he left with that woman." "And what are you going to do?" "I don't know. I thought maybe I could stay with you for a while, just until I find a job and can get a small place to live." There it was, the question I had been waiting for. After throwing me out of my own house, after selling my things, after treating me like garbage, now she wanted me to rescue her. She wanted the poor widow she had created to save her from the consequences of her own actions. "Of course, dear, this will always be your home." Lauren looked at me with surprise, as if she hadn't expected it to be that easy. "Really, Mom? After everything that happened? You're my daughter, Lauren. That will never change." She stood up, and this time she did hug me. It was a desperate hug from someone who is drowning and clings to the only thing she can find. I hugged her too, but not with the unconditional love from before. Now there was calculation in my embrace strategy. "Thank you, Mom. I promise I'll find a job soon. I won't be a burden. Don't worry about that now. Rest, recover, and then we'll see what options you have." Lauren left that afternoon to get some things from her apartment. I stayed in the kitchen thinking about how easy it had been. She had come to me exactly as I had planned, broken, desperate, without options. And best of all, she suspected nothing to her. I was still the poor, abandoned mother who needed her compassion, but this was only the first part of my plan. Having her live with me would give me the perfect opportunity for the next phase. I was going to let her settle in, let her feel safe, let her believe she had found refuge in my house, and then, when she least expected it, I was going to teach her the difference between being poor by choice and being poor by consequence. That night, I called George. "George, I need you to do something else for me. Tell me, Mrs. Marjorie. I want you to investigate Richard's debts. I want to know exactly how much he owes, to whom, and what legal options I have to separate them from my daughter. That will take time, but it's feasible." "Perfect. And George, I want you to keep this absolutely secret. No one can know that I'm behind this investigation." "Of course, Mrs. Marjorie. May I ask what your final plan is?" "My plan, George, is very simple. I'm going to save my daughter, but first, she has to understand what it really means to hit rock bottom." When I hung up, I poured myself a glass of the wine Michael used to save for special occasions. It had been a long time since I had had an occasion this special. The game had begun, and for the first time in months I held all the good cards in my hand. Lauren moved into my house the next day. She arrived with 2 suitcases and a cardboard box. Everything that was left of her previous life. I watched her unpack in her old room, the same one where she had slept during her teenage years, and I could see the humiliation in every one of her movements. She had gone from living in a luxurious apartment to taking refuge in the room of her youth. "Mom, I found this in the apartment," she said, showing me a manila envelope. It was among Richard's things. "It has your name on it." It was another envelope from Michael. My heart raced, but I kept my composure. "My name? How strange." "Yes, look," she said, showing me the envelope. Indeed, it had my name written in Michael's handwriting. But this envelope was different from the one I had found in my dresser. This one was smaller, newer. "Maybe Richard found it among Dad's things when he died and forgot to give it to me," Lauren said. "It's possible. Let me see it." I opened the envelope in her presence. Inside, there was a short letter and a small key. The letter said, "Marjorie, if you're reading this after having received the main envelope, it means that our daughter is going through a difficult time. This key opens a safety deposit box at Central Bank, downtown branch. The number is 247. Inside, there is something that can help you help her, but use it wisely. With eternal love, Michael." Lauren read the letter over my shoulder. A safety deposit box. Dad had a safety deposit box. I had no idea. I lied. "Your father never told me about this. Do you think we should go see what's inside?" "I don't know, dear. Maybe it's better to leave things as they are." "But Mom, maybe there's something important there. Documents, or I don't know, maybe something valuable that could help us?" The desperation in her voice was palpable. Lauren was clinging to any possibility of finding a way out of her situation, and I was going to let her cling a little longer before showing her the full reality. "All right," I said after a calculated pause. "We can go tomorrow." That night, Lauren and I had dinner together for the first time in months. She had cooked, trying to be helpful, but the food tasted of guilt and desperation. She told me more details about what had happened in Europe, and each story was worse than the last. Richard lied to me about everything. "Mom, not just about the business, but also about the debts. I thought he only owed a little money, but it turns out he owes more than 100,000 pesos. And the worst part is that he used my name for some loans without me knowing. How is that possible? He forged my signature. When I married him, I gave him some documents so he could handle the bank paperwork for the joint account. I never thought he would use them for this. Do you have any way to prove that you didn't know? I don't know. Everything is so complicated. The banks say that since we were married, I'm responsible for all his debts anyway and the divorce. I don't even know where Richard is now. He's completely disappeared. His phone is disconnected. He doesn't answer emails. Nothing. It's like he vanished. Perfect. Richard had fled like the rat he had always been, leaving Lauren to face alone the consequences of her actions. In a way, he had done me a favor now. My daughter was experiencing exactly what I had felt when she abandoned me, the betrayal of someone she had trusted completely. I'm so sorry, dear. I didn't know things were that bad. I didn't know either, Mom. I thought Richard loved me, that we were going to build something together. But it turns out I was just an easy way for him to get money and documents. Lauren began to cry again. How could I have been so stupid? How did I not realize what he really was? It was tempting to tell her that I had seen the signs from the start, that I had tried to warn her that Richard had never seemed trustworthy to me, but that would have broken my facade of the understanding, vulnerable mother. Love blinds us sometimes, dear. Don't blame yourself. But, Mom, I didn't just ruin my life. I ruined yours too. I treated you horribly. I took your house, your car, your things, and all of it to give to a man who abandoned me at the first opportunity. It's over. Lauren. No, it's not over. Now we're both in trouble because of me. You lost everything Dad left you, and I lost my marriage and my future. We're two poor women trying to survive. If only she knew. I thought if she knew that right now I have more money than she could imagine. That I'm the owner of the building where she lived. That I could solve all her problems with a single phone call, but it wasn't time yet. The next day we went to the bank. Lauren was nervous, hopeful. I maintained my act of the confused widow who didn't understand much about finances. The bank employee took us to the safety deposit boxes, verified my identification, and opened box number 247. Inside, there were many jewels rings, necklaces, bracelets, earrings, some pieces I recognized as heirlooms from Michael's family. Others were completely new to me. There was also a letter explaining the origin of each piece and its approximate value. Lauren was left breathless. Mom, this must be worth a fortune. You think so? Yes, look, this emerald and this pearl necklace. Mom, Dad kept a treasure here. According to Michael's letter, the jewels were worth approximately 200,000 pesos. It was a significant amount, but it was nothing compared to the rest of my estate. It was like finding coins under the sofa when you have 1,000,000 pesos in the bank. What do we do with this, Mom? I don't know, dear. They're family memories, but Mom, we could sell some pieces. With this money, you could recover your beach house and I could pay off some of Richard's debts. There it was again. Even when she found something valuable, Lauren's first reaction was to think about how to use it to fix the problems Richard had created. She hadn't learned anything yet. Are you sure you want to use your father's inheritance to pay off Richard's debts? What other choice do I have, Mom? If I don't pay something, the banks are going to seize everything I have. And technically, I don't have anything. Everything was in Richard's name. Think carefully, dear. Once you sell these jewels, you won't be able to get them back. I know, but what else can I do? I can't get a job with all these legal demands pending. No employer will want to hire someone with so many legal problems. We took the jewels home. Lauren spread them out on the kitchen table and examined them one by one, calculating which ones she could sell and which ones she could keep. It was painful to see her reduce her father's memories to numbers on a sheet of paper, Mom. I think with this we can solve the most urgent problems. Not all, but at least the most serious. And then what? Then I'll look for a job, try to rebuild my life. Maybe I can find a small room to rent something cheap. You don't have to leave, dear. You can stay here as long as you need. No, Mom, I've already abused your kindness too much. Besides, you also need money. You can't support me indefinitely. It was fascinating to see how Lauren had built a completely false image of my financial situation. To her, I was a poor widow who could barely support herself, when in reality, I had enough resources to buy the entire building where we had found the jewels. That afternoon, George called me. Mrs. Marjorie, I have the complete report on Richard's debts. The situation is worse than I thought. How much worse? He owes more than 200,000 pesos to several banks, and also has debts with private lenders. What's more concerning is that if he used falsified documents with your daughter's signature for some of these loans, that means Lauren is responsible. Legally, it's complicated. If we can prove that she didn't know, we could free her from some debts. But it's going to be a long and costly process. How costly? For a good lawyer specialized in these types of cases, probably 50,000 pesos. and there's no guarantee of success. I understand. And if she simply pays the debts, if she has the money, it would be the fastest solution. But I doubt she has access to that amount. George, I want you to prepare all the necessary documents to free my daughter from these debts. But don't tell her anything yet. You're going to pay Mrs. Marjorie. I'm going to do whatever it takes to protect my daughter, but this has to be handled in a very specific way. When I hung up, I found Lauren in the living room, looking at the jewels with a sad expression. She looked lost, like a child who had broken her favorite toy and didn't know how to fix it. What are you thinking about, dear? About Dad? About how disappointed he would be in me if he could see what I've done with my life? Your father loved you very much, Lauren. He would understand. No, Mom. He taught me to be responsible, to value family, to not be selfish, and I did exactly the opposite. I abandoned my mother for a man who turned out to be a liar. I sold my family's memories for money. I ruined everything he built. For the first time since she had returned, I heard real repentance in her voice. It wasn't just regret for the consequences of her actions, but genuine recognition that she had done something morally wrong. People make mistakes, dear. The important thing is to learn from them. But how do I learn from this, Mom? How do I repair the damage I've done? There it was, the question I had been waiting for. Lauren was finally ready to face the truth about her actions and their consequences, but it still wasn't time to reveal my final card. First, I had to let her hit rock bottom completely. The following days were crucial for my plan. Lauren decided to sell most of the jewels, keeping only the engagement ring that Michael had given me and a small necklace that had belonged to her grandmother. I watched her prepare to go to the jewelry stores, research prices, negotiate with buyers. It was painful to see her reduce decades of family history to commercial transactions, but necessary for her to understand the real weight of her decisions. Mom, I got 180,000 pesos for the jewels, she told me one afternoon. Counting the bills over the kitchen table, it's less than I expected, but it's enough to pay the most urgent debts. Are you sure you want to do this? I have no choice. If I don't pay something soon, they're going to seize everything. Even this house could be at risk if they prove that I have any kind of legal connection with the properties. How ironic the situation was. Lauren was worried about losing a house that I owned, paying off the debts of a man who had abandoned her, with money from jewels that had belonged to the same man who had created the fortune that could save her. And how are you going to decide which debts to pay first? I spoke with a free financial advisor at the bank. She told me to prioritize the debts that have real guarantees, because those are the ones that can affect properties or generate immediate seizures. Lauren had matured a lot in these few weeks. The woman who had sold my things without consulting me was now carefully researching each financial decision. Suffering had made her more responsible but also more fragile that night. While she organized the debt documents on the table, I received a call from George. Mrs. Marjorie, I have important news. We managed to locate Richard. Where is he? In Paris, as your daughter suspected? But here's the interesting part. He's trying to get French residency. Through a fake marriage with that young woman your daughter mentioned. A fake marriage? Yes. Apparently the girl needs papers, and he needs a way to stay in Europe without being deported. But most importantly, we found evidence that he deliberately falsified your daughter's documents with the intent to flee the country. That means Lauren can be freed from the debts. With this evidence, we can indeed prove fraud and coercion. Your daughter wouldn't have to pay anything Richard did behind her back. It was perfect. I had the way to save Lauren from all her debts legally, without her suspecting that I had the money to do it. George, I want you to start the legal process immediately, I told him. Understood. It will take about 3 weeks, maybe a month. Perfect. When I hung up, Lauren looked at me curiously. Who was it? Mom? A lady who was asking for Mrs. Meredith, the neighbor on the corner? She dialed the wrong number. Lying had become easy. Each passing day, I felt more comfortable with this double life I was leading. On one hand, I was the poor abandoned mother that Lauren believed I was. On the other, I was a wealthy woman quietly orchestrating the salvation and education of her daughter. During the following 2 weeks, I watched Lauren struggle with decisions she had never had to make before. How to stretch money for food, how to negotiate with creditors, how to look for a job when your credit history is ruined. It was a cruel but necessary education, Mom. I went to 3 job interviews today, she told me one afternoon. Arriving home with swollen feet and a tired face, in 2 of them, they told me they couldn't hire me because of the pending legal issues. In the 3rd, they offered me a part-time job cleaning offices at night. Are you going to take it? I have no choice. It pays very little, but it's better than nothing. And I can work at night to keep looking for something better during the day. Seeing my daughter, who had lived a comfortable life for more than 40 years, getting ready to clean offices at night broke my heart. But it also filled me with pride. She was finally facing reality without expecting someone else to solve her problems. Are you sure you can handle so much physical work? I'm going to have to learn. I can't keep being a burden to you, Mom. It's enough that you let me live here without paying anything. This is your house. Lauren, no, Mom. This is your house, and I'm here because of your generosity. But I won't abuse that forever. One night, while Lauren was on her first cleaning shift, Nora came to visit me. She sat in the kitchen with me, drinking tea and looking at the family photos that adorned the walls. Marjorie, I have to ask you something. What do you mean? Well, it's just that when she left, she seemed so sure of herself, so arrogant. She talked about the great life she was going to have in Europe, about how successful Richard was. And now she's back completely destroyed, working as a cleaner, living with you again. Life takes many turns, Nora. Yes, but there's something else. I've been watching Lauren these days, and she looks different, not just sad, but humble, as if she had learned something important. Nora had always been very perceptive. What do you think she learned? I think she learned the value of the things she had taken for granted. Like having a mother who loves her unconditionally? Maybe. Nora, can I tell you something? When Lauren left and treated you so badly, many of us thought you would never forgive her. But here you are, taking care of her again, giving her a home when she has nowhere to go. She's my daughter. Nora, yes, but not all mothers would do what you're doing, especially after being treated the way you were treated. If Nora knew the whole truth, that I had the power to solve all of Lauren's problems, but was choosing to let her suffer a little longer so she could learn the full lesson. Do you think I'm doing the right thing? I think you're doing what a good mother would do. But I also think Lauren needs to completely understand what she lost when she abandoned you. What do you mean? I think she needs to value you not just as the mother who rescues her when she's in trouble, but as the strong woman who built a stable life for 45 years. She needs to respect you, not just need you. Nora had hit the nail on the head. That was exactly the point of my whole plan. I didn't want Lauren to come back to me out of desperation. I wanted her to return out of genuine respect and mature love. And how do you think that can happen? I think it's already happening. I've seen her these days, Marjorie. The way she talks to you now is completely different. She's no longer the daughter who gives you orders or treats you as if you were a burden. Now she's an adult woman who is genuinely grateful to have a mother like you. That night, when Lauren came back from work, I saw her arrive tired but with a new dignity. She had earned those few pesos with her own effort, and that meant something to her. How was your first day? Hard, but not as bad as I thought. The other ladies who work there helped me a lot. One of them, Mrs. Carmen, taught me tricks to clean more efficiently. Mrs. Carmen, yes, she's 60 years old and has been cleaning offices for 20 years. She told me she started after her husband left her with 3 small children. She says it's not the job she dreamed of, but it gave her independence and dignity. She sounds like a wise woman. She is. She told me something that made me think a lot. What did she tell you? She told me that there are 2 kinds of people who end up doing this job. Those who are there because they never had opportunities, and those who are there because they ruined the opportunities they did have. She asked me which group I belonged to, and what did you answer? I told her the truth, that I had had all the opportunities in the world, a family who loved me, a stable home, an inheritance, and that I ruined it all for following a man who wasn't worth anything. What did she say? She laughed and told me, well, honey, at least you know exactly why you're here. That puts you one step ahead of most people. Lauren poured herself a glass of water and sat with me at the table. Mom, I want you to know something. These days have been the hardest of my life, but also the most important. Why? Because I finally understand what really matters. It's not money. It's not living in the most luxurious apartment. It's not impressing people. It's having people who love you genuinely, who are there when everything falls apart. Lauren, no. Let me finish. You have every right to hate me for what I did to you. I abandoned you when you needed me most. I took away everything Dad had left you. I treated you as if you were a nuisance. And now I'm here again, hoping you'll forgive me and take care of me. I already forgave you, dear, but I haven't forgiven myself. And I won't until I show that I've really changed, that I learned from my mistakes. George called me the next morning, double quotes Mrs. Marjorie. I have excellent news. The legal process is almost complete. We can free your daughter from all of Richard's debts. It was the moment. After weeks of watching Lauren struggle, work, and reflect on her mistakes, the moment had finally arrived to show her that she had never been alone, that she had always had someone silently taking care of her. George, I want you to arrange a meeting. It's time for my daughter to know the whole truth. George scheduled the meeting for Friday morning in his office. I told Lauren that I had gotten an appointment with a lawyer who could help her with her legal problems, but I didn't explain the details. She agreed to come, though she was nervous about the cost of the consultation. Mom, I don't have money to pay a lawyer. I barely have enough to cover basic expenses. Don't worry about that now, dear. Let's just listen to what he has to say. We arrived at George's office on time. Lauren had dressed in her best clothes, which now looked a bit big on her thinner body. She was nervous, playing with her hands. Expecting yet another bad piece of news to add to her endless list of problems, George greeted us with his usual professional smile. "Mrs. Marjorie, Miss Lauren, thank you for coming. Thank you for receiving us," Lauren replied. "Although, I should warn you that my financial situation is very complicated, and I probably won't be able to pay high fees." "That's precisely what we're going to talk about," George said, exchanging a glance with me. "But first, I need you to review these documents." George handed Lauren a thick folder. She opened it and began to read, her expression gradually changing from confusion to surprise. "I don't understand. These documents say that Richard forged my signature, that there's evidence of fraud, that I'm not responsible for the debts." "That's right. We've been investigating your case for the past few weeks. We found enough evidence to prove that you were a victim of identity fraud. But how is that possible? Who paid for this investigation? I don't have money for this." George looked at me. It was my moment. "Lauren, there's something I need to tell you." "What is it, Mom?" I took a deep breath. After weeks of acting, I was finally going to reveal the truth. "Your father left me more than you knew." "Much more? What do you mean?" "George, show her the other documents." George took out a second folder and handed it to Lauren. This time the documents were property deeds, bank statements, investment certificates, all the wealth that Michael had built in secret. Lauren read in silence for several minutes. Her face went through a full range of emotions: confusion, disbelief, shock, and finally, understanding. "Mom, this says you're the owner of the building where I lived." "Yes, and that you have other properties, bank accounts, investments." "Yes. This means that when I sold the beach house, it was your house and the sale was fraudulent. I've already recovered it." Lauren kept looking at the papers, trying to process the information. "How long have you known this?" "Since the day you called me from the doctor." "You knew all this when I came back from Europe asking for help." "Yes. You knew you could solve all my problems while you watched me cry every night." "Yes." There was a long, tense silence. Lauren closed the folders and looked me directly in the eyes. "Why, Mom? Why did you let me suffer if you could have helped me?" This was the question I had been waiting for weeks, because you needed to learn something that you could not learn in any other way. "What thing?" "You needed to learn the value of the things you had lost, the value of family, of respect, of responsibility. When you abandoned me, it wasn't just money that you took away from me. It was dignity, it was love, it was trust." Lauren began to cry, but they were not tears of self-pity like the ones she had shed during these weeks. They were tears of deep understanding. "I abandoned you when you needed me the most. Yes, I treated you like trash. Yes, and you saved me anyway. Yes, but not in the way you expected. I didn't save you by giving you money so you could continue making the same mistakes. I saved you by letting you hit bottom so that you could learn to save yourself." George intervened discreetly. "Miss Lauren, your mother has paid all the legal expenses to free you from Richard's debts. She has also recovered all the properties that were sold fraudulently. You are completely free of legal problems. And the cleaning job I got? You can leave it if you want," I said to her. "But I hope you don't." "Why?" "Because that job is teaching you something you never learned when everything was easy. It's teaching you the value of your own effort, the dignity of honest work, the importance of valuing every single peso you earn." Lauren wiped away her tears and looked at me with an expression I hadn't seen in years. It wasn't the look of a daughter who needs her mother, but the look of an adult woman who respects another woman. "Do you forgive me, Mom?" "I forgave you a long time ago, dear. The question is whether you can forgive yourself." "I don't know if I can. I did unforgivable things. People make mistakes, Lauren. What matters is what we do after recognizing those mistakes." George left us alone in his office for a few minutes. Lauren and I sat in silence, processing everything that had happened. "Mom, I want you to know something. Even if you didn't have all this money, even if you really were the poor widow I thought you were, I would have learned the same lesson." "What lesson?" "That there is nothing more valuable than having someone who loves you unconditionally." During these weeks, the only thing that kept me sane was knowing that I had a home with you, that no matter how much I had ruined my life, you were still my mother. That will never change, Lauren. "I know. But I also know that I can never again take that love for granted. I have to earn it every day, with respect, with gratitude, with actions, not only with words." We left George's office with a completely new relationship. We were no longer mother and daughter united by blood and habit. We were two adult women who had chosen each other after going through the hardest possible test. The following weeks were about rebuilding, but not the kind that Lauren expected. Even though now she knew that I had enough resources to solve all her problems, she decided to keep her night cleaning job. "Mom, I need to finish what I started," she told me one afternoon while she was getting ready to go to work. "I can't just go back to a comfortable life as if nothing had happened. Are you sure? You don't have to punish yourself forever. It's not a punishment. It's a way to remember who I was and who I want to be." Now, I watched her put on her work uniform, something unthinkable. A few months ago when she lived in the luxurious apartment with Richard, but there was something different in her posture, in the way she moved. She was no longer the broken woman who had arrived crying at my door. She was someone who had found dignity in honest work. Nora came to visit me that afternoon, as she did every few days since Lauren had come back. Marjorie, there are very strange rumors circulating around the neighborhood. What kind of rumors? People are saying that you're not as poor as we all thought. Someone saw Lauren coming out of a very elegant lawyer's office downtown, and then they saw her paying off all her debts at the bank. People talk too much, Nora. Yes. But they're also saying that you recovered your beach house and that somehow you managed to solve all of Lauren's legal problems. That costs a lot of money, Marjorie. Nora knew me too well to deceive her for long. What exactly do you want to know? I want to know if my friend of 40 years has been lying to me about her situation. I poured myself a cup of tea and sat down in front of her. It was time to be honest with someone else. Michael left me more than anyone knew, Nora. Much more. How much more? Enough so that Lauren and I will never have to worry about money again. Nora was silent for a moment, processing this information. And why did you pretend to be poor all these months? Because I needed Lauren to learn something she couldn't learn any other way. I told her the whole story. Lauren's cruel phone call, my plan of silent revenge, the weeks watching her hit bottom, and finally, the revelation in George's office. Marjorie, that is brilliant and terrible at the same time. Terrible, yes, because you let your own daughter suffer when you could have helped her immediately. But also brilliant because I understand why you did it. Do you really understand it? Yes. Lauren needed to learn the value of the things she had lost. If you had simply given her money to solve her problems, she would have learned that there is always someone who will rescue her from the consequences of her bad decisions. Exactly. But Marjorie, didn't it hurt to see her suffer? Every day, every night, I saw her cry. Every morning I saw her get up to go to work tired and defeated. But I knew that if I rescued her too soon, she wouldn't have learned the complete lesson. And do you think she learned it? Look for yourself. Lauren knows that now she has access to enough money to live comfortably, but she chose to keep her job. She knows that she can move to a better place, but she decided to stay here with me. She knows that she doesn't have to worry about debts, but she's using her own savings to help other women in similar situations. She's helping other women. Yes, she became friends with the lady she works with, and she's using part of the money she earned cleaning offices to help a coworker who has trouble paying her child's daycare. Nora smiled. That's not the Lauren who went to Europe. No, it's not. This Lauren understands that money is a tool, not a goal. She understands that dignity comes from work and respect, not from material possessions. That night, when Lauren came back from work, she found me reading in the living room. Mom, I have to tell you something. What happened today? Mrs. Carmen asked me if I was the daughter of the rich lady from the North neighborhood. What did you tell her? I told her yes, that you have enough money so that I don't have to work. And do you know what she asked me after that? What? She asked me why I keep working, so I explained that it's because I need to prove to myself that I can rely on my own means. And what did she say? She laughed and told me, honey, that's the difference between being rich and acting rich. Your mom taught you how to be truly rich. Mrs. Carmen is very wise. Yes, and she made me understand something important. It's not about the money you have, but about how you use it and how you relate to it. Lauren sat with me on the sofa. Mom, I want you to know that I have made a decision. What decision? I'm going to stay living here with you, but not as a daughter who comes back to her parents' house. I want to stay as an adult woman who chooses to share her life with her mother. What's the difference? The difference is that I'm going to pay my part of the expenses, I'm going to contribute to the maintenance of the house, and I'm going to treat this relationship as a partnership between two independent women who love and respect each other. Lauren, you don't need to. Yes, I do, Mom. I need our relationship to be different from what it was before. Before, I was a daughter who took for granted the love and care of her mother. Now I want to be an adult woman who values and takes care of the most important relationship in her life, and your job. I'm going to keep working, but not necessarily cleaning offices forever. I want to study. I want to prepare myself to do something more meaningful with my life, but I want to do it step by step, earning every opportunity. Do you have any idea what you want to study? Yes, I want to study social work. These weeks have taught me how many people are going through difficult situations without having anyone to support them. I want to use the resources we have to help other women who are going through what I went through. It was perfect. Lauren had not only learned to value what she had, but she had found a way to use her experience for something constructive. And what about Richard? George told me he was arrested in France for the fraudulent marriage. He's going to be deported soon. But honestly, Mom, I don't care anymore. That part of my life is over. You don't feel resentment. No. Richard did me a favor without knowing it. If he hadn't abandoned and betrayed me, I never would have hit rock bottom. And if I had never hit rock bottom, I never would have learned to truly value what I have. That night, for the first time in months, I went to bed completely at peace. My plan had worked perfectly. Lauren had not only learned the lessons she needed to learn, but she had emerged from the experience as a stronger, wiser, and more compassionate person. Michael would have been proud. 6 months later, our life had found a new balance that neither of us could have imagined before. Lauren finished her social work studies with excellent grades, and I decided to use part of my resources to establish a foundation to help women in situations of domestic violence and economic abandonment. Mom, the letter from the university arrived, Lauren told me one morning. Entering the kitchen with an envelope in her hands, they accepted me into the master's program. How wonderful. When do you start? Next semester. But Mom, I want you to know that I'm going to pay for it with my own savings. I've been saving money from my job at the Government Social Services Office where I work now. Lauren had found a job in social services after graduating, helping families in crisis. The salary wasn't high, but she had learned to live with the essentials and to value every peso she earned. Are you sure? We can easily afford the master's degree. I know, but I need to do it by myself. It's part of who I am now. Nora arrived that afternoon for tea, as she had done every Friday for the past few months. She had become a confidant to both of us, observing our transformation with fascination. Marjorie, I have to confess something, she said while serving herself a second cup. At first I thought you had been very cruel to Lauren, and what do you think now? Now I think you were the wisest mother I've ever known. Look at your daughter. Look at her. It was true. The Lauren who was in the living room studying for her exams was completely different from the one who had gone to Europe months earlier. This Lauren had a serenity that came from within, a confidence based on her own achievements, not on material possessions. Did you know that yesterday I saw Lauren at the market buying vegetables for a family she's helping through her work? She hadn't told me, and when I asked her why she was using her own money instead of the government budget, she told me that some things can't be measured in official budgets. That night, Lauren and I had dinner on the terrace, something we had turned into a tradition. It was our moment to talk about the day, plan for the future, and simply enjoy each other's company. Mom, I received a very strange letter today, she said while cutting her salad. From whom? From Richard. My muscles tensed. Richard? He wrote to you. From where? From prison in France. Apparently he was sentenced to 2 years for marriage fraud. In the letter, he says he regrets everything he did, that he wants to ask me for forgiveness. And how do you feel about that? Honestly, I don't feel anything. Not anger, not sadness, not a desire for revenge. It's as if that part of my life had happened decades ago, not months ago. Are you going to answer him? No, not because I hate him, but because there's nothing to say. That Lauren who married him no longer exists? This Lauren has nothing to talk about with him. I was impressed by the maturity in her voice. The woman sitting across from me had developed an inner strength that came from having hit rock bottom and risen by herself. Do you know what this whole experience taught me, Mom? What? That true love is not the one that tells you what you want to hear. True love is the one that teaches you what you need to learn, even when it hurts. It's a difficult lesson to learn, yes, but a necessary one. Richard told me what I wanted to hear. He made me feel special. He convinced me that I deserved a life of luxury without effort. You taught me that true wealth comes from work, respect, and genuine relationships. That night, after Lauren went to her room to study, I sat on the terrace alone. Looking at the stars and thinking of Michael, I had promised him that I would take care of our daughter, and I finally felt that I had fulfilled that promise in the right way. I hadn't taken care of her by giving her money when she needed it. I had taken care of her by teaching her to take care of herself. I hadn't saved her by solving her problems. I had saved her by allowing her to learn how to solve them herself. The next day was Sunday, and we had planned to visit the beach house together for the first time since I recovered it. Lauren hadn't wanted to go before, saying she needed time to process everything that had happened. Are you ready? I asked her as we got into the car. I think so. The trip was silent, but comfortable. When we arrived, Lauren stayed in the car for a moment. Looking at the house where we had spent so many family summers, it looks exactly the same, she said finally. Some things don't change, but others do. I'm not the same person who sold this house. We entered together. The house was clean and tidy, exactly as Michael and I had kept it for years. Lauren walked through every room, touching the furniture, looking at the family photos that hung on the walls. Mom, I want to ask your forgiveness. You already asked me for forgiveness, dear. No. I want to ask forgiveness specifically for this house, not just for selling it, but for reducing all our family memories to a commercial transaction. It's already forgiven. This house represents 40 years of family summers, birthdays, Christmases. Dad built that terrace with his own hands. You planted that garden? You learned to swim on that beach? And I turned it all into money to fund the adventure of a man who wasn't worth anything." She sat on the sofa where Michael used to read on Sunday mornings. "Do you know what hurts me the most?" "What?" "That when I sold it, I didn't feel anything. It was just another property. Now, being here again, I can feel Dad in every corner. I can hear his laughter, smell his morning coffee, see his reading glasses on the table. He's here, Lauren. He's always been here." "I know. And I also know that he's proud of how you handled all this." We spent the entire day in the house, cooking together, cleaning, fixing small details. It was like a ritual of reconnection, not only with the place, but with the values that that place represented. When the sun began to set, we sat on the terrace that Michael had built, looking at the sea. "Mom, I have a proposal." "What is it?" "I want us to turn this house into a temporary shelter for women who are coming out of domestic violence situations. A place where they can stay while they rebuild their lives." It was the perfect proposal. Michael would have loved the idea that his beach house would serve to help other families. "I think it's a beautiful idea, dear. We can use part of the foundation's resources to maintain it, and I can supervise the program through my work." "Are you sure you want to turn our family refuge into that, Mom?" "The best refuges are the ones that are shared. Dad always said that a house isn't truly a home until it opens its doors to other people who need love." He was right. Michael had always been generous with our home, inviting relatives, friends, neighbors who needed a place to stay. We went home that night with a new project and a completely renewed relationship. We were no longer mother and daughter united by obligation or need. We were two women who had consciously chosen to build a life together based on love, respect, and a shared purpose. That night, before falling asleep, I spoke to Michael in silence. "We did it, my love. Our daughter finally understood what really matters, and for the first time since his death, I felt him answer me. I always knew you both would make it. You are stronger than you think." Justice had come not as revenge, but as education. Not as punishment, but as transformation. And in the end, we both had gained something far more valuable than money. We had gained an authentic relationship, built on solid foundations that no future crisis could ever destroy.